everybody, I'm Dustin Southworth with the Watchful Penguin. Today we're working with the Hopbox Beer Brewing kit. We got one, we ordered one, got it in last week. It's right over here. Not following me. We're going to be working with this today. We're going to be cooking up the beer. We got an IPA, a Citra IPA. We got all the ingredients. We got the hops, the sugar, the malt. We got everything we need, and we're gonna be brewing. So we're gonna start that today. And with me is Tyson and Ronick, and he likes playing with the beer bottles.
Right. Well, I was hoping there would be some in already.
No, not quite. We don't have it ready yet. We're gonna start boiling tonight. So that's our first step.
There's beer.
Oh, there's a beer.
I think you have to have the right frame of mind before brewing beer.
Well,
you gotta be in the kind of the mindset.
You gotta be ready. You gotta feel the beer.
You gotta feel it.
Exactly.
Experience what's going to be happening. So
Yeah.
again, from steps 1 through 12,
Yeah.
making beer, getting it ready,
Yep.
and hoping that within 10 days, less than 2 weeks, that we'll be ready
less than 2
have
weeks.
these bottles filled and be ready to
Exactly.
share our documentation with you. So
Yep.
with that, Dustin, let's get started.
All right. Well, let's do it. So I think we're gonna start by sanitizing everything. It comes with a solution sanitizer. You mix a tablespoon with 1 gallon of water, and you put all your different parts and pieces because you don't want to get any contaminants in the beer. You don't want anything to mess with the yeast production. So we'll have to get a bucket and start doing that, putting all of our pieces in there. So that's the next step.
Hey, welcome back to the beer making process. As you can see, we have things sanitizing here. We're also getting ready to steep the grains, as they say. I'll bring Dustin back on to explain the sanitation process and what we're going to be doing to steep the grains. Dustin, welcome back.
All right, yeah. So we got all of our main components, mostly thermometers, thermometer, hydrometer, and the airlock. We're sanitizing that right now. You just put a tablespoon of the sanitizer in hot water. Now Tyson's we have this mesh bag for our grains, to steep the grains, but it does not go over my head. So he's gonna dump that in the mesh bag, and then we're gonna,
Allegedly.
he's gonna try to put that in the mesh bag.
Okay.
You gotta take the plastic bag out.
Gotta take the plastic bag out.
Yeah, you can't boil it with that in.
Look at that.
Yeah, so
So you
we're
hold
gonna,
right there. And we'll just come up.
oh shit, put that over there. And make sure you're over the boiling water before you start doing that.
I asked you to do it over again. Okay, there we go.
Alright, so now what we do is we
just drop it.
we put that in the water, and then we boil it for 30 minutes. And you make weird sounds when
So I turn this up.
yeah. So we're gonna let that cook for 30 minutes. It's basically like making tea. You're just gonna getting the flavor out of them. So as I said, we'll let that cook for 30 minutes, and then we'll be back.
Tell you what.
Ow.
Our next step is going to be adding the hops. The hops. As you can see, we are adding 1/3 of the hops that we've received, so we've divided them all out on a nice cutting tray, sliced them up into thirds. Now, as your wort beer returns to boil, most recipes will call for the addition of the hops. The hops added towards the beginning of the boil will impart a bitterness to the beer, whereas hops added at the end of the boil will have more of an effect on the aroma, which we can definitely sense. Follow your recipe's instructions regarding additions of hops to the worts. Our recipe calls for the additional hops. Hold on. Yes. After 30 minutes, we remove the grains discard. So we take this out of our wort, which is in our pot here, like so, carefully. And then we're going to toss them in the garbage can. Yes? Way to go. So there goes the grains. Now, we're going to add a third of these Citra hops after we bring the water to a boil again. So we're going to crank up the heat. And as it starts to boil, we'll add the hops. We are starting to boil on the pot here, so we'll add our first third of hops in. Now halfway through, we will add our second third in at the 15-minute mark, and then at the last 5-minute marks, add our last of the hops into the pot. First third of the hops. Now. There we go. We have now reached the halfway point of the boil, and now the addition of the second third of the hops. Done. We have now reached the 5-minute mark exactly on our boil. 5 minutes left, by the way, too, with the rolling boil. It's time for the addition of the third hops. We see Dustin has taken some necessary preparations for our cold cooling here, and I'll talk about that in just a second. First, the addition of the third hops. Okay, move the camera over here. We can see what we're going to be doing very soon. At the end of the boil, we need to immediately take that down to 70 degrees before we take it into this little guy right here. So we're going to take our pot and place it in this ice cold water. That includes ice. And we'll drop that down to 70 degrees. And then, Dustin, mind coming on and talk about what we do after that?
Alright, sure. Alright, like you said, we're going to rapidly cool it down. And then we're gonna test the gravity of the beer, or of our wort.
Not the movie.
No, not the movie Gravity. Yeah. Didn't know where you're going with that one, but yeah, not the movie Gravity. So yeah, we're gonna test that with our hydrometer.
Love
We've
Sandra
got
Bullock.
a coffee cup sanitizing to get us ready, and then we'll test the gravity. Write that down.
Not the movie.
So we can add it on to the, we can calculate our total alcohol by volume when we get our final gravity. This is our original gravity. And then at the end of our fermenting, we will do a final gravity, and that will give us our alcohol by volume. So those are our next few steps. Once the 5 minutes is over with the last third of an ounce of hops is what we just put in, what Tyson just put in. And so we're waiting for that to finish boiling, and then we will begin cooling and moving on to the next few steps.
3 minutes left on the boil, by the way.
Yes, so.
I like Sandra Bullock.
Okay. All right, we're on our last, the time just came up, the 30 minutes that we were boiling the wort for is up, and so now we're gonna go into the rapid cooling. And it is steaming pretty good. So yeah, we're gonna rapid cool this, if Tyson can set it in the sink without spilling it.
Working on it.
That'd be good. So yeah, we're gonna, we have our sanitized thermometer that we're gonna keep checking until it gets down to 70 degrees. And then we're gonna test it in this tube, and then we're gonna throw a hydrometer inside of it to test it at that original gravity. No jokes.
Oh, Sandra Bullock.
Yeah,
She's hot.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's the next set of steps. We'll just be waiting for this to cool down. So.
Kind of like we're still waiting for Sandra.
Back in the sanitizer. is now that we got the wort cooled, we're going to be testing the original gravity. I have a hydrometer here. I have the wort in our test tube, so I'm just going to...
Almost the entire wort, by the way.
Yeah.
Oops.
We ran into a slight problem. It is not supposed to do that.
It's not supposed to do
Be
what?
able to spin it. And it's supposed to, well, let's say 100% gravity, I would say. There's no air to it. This thing's supposed to bob up and down in it and give you a measurement, but this is too thick to test, so we'll just have to go ahead and put that in our fermenter and add water, because that is way too thick to test. So that will be our next step.
So we might have a pretty potent beer, is what you're saying?
We could if it doesn't turn out right with the water that we add. As I said, we're gonna have to put the wort in and then fill the rest up with they say filtered water, but
So all of that in the tube to your left
yes,
goes in.
yes.
What about what's in the pot?
The rest of it will too. Everything we cooked will go in, and then we will put water on top of that to fill it up.
Looks like a bad science project waiting to happen.
Yeah, most likely. But at least we won't have too much water because that's when it tends to explode. So we're good there, I guess. That's a good way to look at it.
All right, fill her up.
So this is almost our entire wort.
Where's the yeast come into play, by the way?
That would be after we add our put all of our wort in the fermenter.
That's what you're doing now.
Just trying to get all the wort off, and so that I can get it into the fermenter.
Does not look like any IPA I've ever drank.
Well, it's a special brew.
Special blend.
Yeah.
Ginger licks.
Yeah. Ginger looks weird.
Ugh. Over the shoulder shot. Oh, God.
So here's what not to do.
Yeah, well, did we mention we were actually doing a tutorial on how not to brew beer?
Yeah.
Public safety lesson.
How to. This is a how not to.
Boy, this is... Meanwhile, back with the over-the-shoulder shot.
Need some scraping action.
I feel like I wasted $1.57 on ice.
$1.57.
What? Ew.
Just topping off our wort. With the filter.
Topping off?
Yeah. Filling the whole thing.
So where's the yeast come into play?
That's the next step. Like I said, we're topping this off, and then next we'll add the yeast just into this part, and then we'll put an airlock on top with water in it, and that'll tell us when we're ready to, when the fermenting is done by the amount of bubbles that are going through the airlock. And the airlock is right here. It just sits on top of the fermenter here, and you fill this up with water,
Okay.
and it'll bubbles will go through there.
Stop. Ow, 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 ow.
Okay, so the next step is to pitch the yeast, which is just adding it into the wort.
So it's not like Randy Johnson.
No, it's not.
Okay.
Not at all. So yeah, you're just all you're doing is pouring it on top of your wort into your fermenter, because it's just going to mix in itself. You don't have to do anything with that. Alright, and then we're going to take that airlock, this piece, we're going to fill it up with water.
Do you have construction helmets?
No.
Ladies and gentlemen, might I remind you, do not attempt this at home. We are true amateurs.
Yes, we are. Alright, we're just putting that airlock right on top of the fermenter.
Would you like me to lock it?
And what we're going to do is...
Did you put the yeast in?
Yes, I did.
Good.
That's sitting right on top.
Okay. Yeast.
So we got the airlock full of water,
Yeah.
and in 24 hours it's going to start bubbling, and that's going to tell us when to once it stops bubbling, that's when we're done fermenting and we're ready to put it into the bottles. But then we have to let it sit with the sugar in the bottles so it's ready.
Curious, what if it doesn't bubble?
Well, then we did something wrong. But it will bubble because of the yeast that's in there.
And once it stops bubbling,
Yes.
then it's time to bottle?
Yes. But then we have to wait another so long, and we're putting it in the bottles with sugar, and that's another acting ingredient, and the carbonation point of it when you're actually adding the carbonation to the beer, and then you let it set for a while, and then it'll be ready to drink after that.
Well, my friends, in the 1980s, Tom Petty once wrote, "Waiting is the hardest part."
Yep.
Now, we wait.
Yep.
First, we wait for the bubbles,
Yes, we have to see those first.
and then we wait for those bubbles to stop.
Yes.
So,
That'll be about 5 to 7 days.
that's a week. So next Wednesday, then
We can do the next.
we can do the next thing. You can watch this bottle. So we're gonna let you go for a little bit. Until then, cheers.